Well, I'm sorry that I can't be there with everybody today, but I am excited to be able to explore this topic, even if it is just virtually. And this is the topic of the 4 questions in the Capturing Kids' Hearts model. But even before you get to the 4 questions, there are so many other ways that we can redirect kids, and we all know the different ways that we use. The thing I like the best about the Capturing Kids' Hearts 4-question model is it gives you that next step, that thing that you can use when you feel like you're just not getting to a kid with just proximity, or the positive reinforcement just isn't working anymore. And another thing I love about it, if you ask these questions the right way, you're still going to maintain that positive relationship with the student. And more importantly, you're going to still show them the love that they need by holding them accountable for their actions. So when it comes down to using the 4 questions, number 1, context matters and situations matter, and the student and what you know about the individual student matters a whole lot. So for example, you might choose to ask a student that doesn't get offended or doesn't get bothered too much in front of the entire class the 4 questions, and it might be perfectly fine. But then you might have a kid who, if you call them out in front of everyone and you ask those 4 questions, you probably know that they're going to get very explosive. So what you might do with that student, if they're disrupting your direct instruction, you might wait. You might use a little turn and talk and then circle back with that student and then ask them those 4 questions when it's private and when it's one-on-one and it's more non-threatening. So a tool is only as good as how you use it. And the 4 questions are a great tool, but if you use them in the incorrect way, you're not going to get the results that you're looking for. And more importantly, you're going to fracture and damage the relationship you have with a particular student. So here are some basic principles to remember when you are using the 4 questions. Number 1, never approach a student or attempt to ask the 4 questions when your buttons are pushed and you're feeling hot and bothered. Instead, you might need to walk it off for a little bit and then circle back to them and ask those questions when your emotions and your mind is in a little bit better of a place. Number 2, your body language and your tone really matters when you ask the 4 questions. You only ask the given questions. Like, stick to that script of those questions and don't vary off of it. Don't lecture before you ask the questions. Don't lecture during your asking of the questions. And don't lecture after. More of them and less of you in the 4 questions is best. All right, this next tidbit that I'm going to share with you in terms of the process and how you ask the 4 questions, for me, it was an absolute game changer in the effectiveness of me getting the results that I want from students and even my own son when it comes to me asking the 4 questions to them. So first one, you only ask the same question twice, no more than twice before you move on to your next step in the process. So if I'm asking a student, hey, Billy, what are you doing right now? And he doesn't answer it, then I ask that same question a second time. Billy, what are you doing right now? What's up? Now, if Billy doesn't answer it, if he comes up with a different answer or ignores me or is trying to dodge it, I've already asked it twice. So at this point, if they still have not answered the question, now you're going to move on to me, which is a game-changing principle. You step back, you give some physical space, and you create silence. And what this silence is going to do is it's going to give the student or the person that you're working with a chance to process what's going on. It's also going to show them that you're extremely patient and that you do, in fact, want to help them out. Once you've created that physical space and that silence, then you move in with a positive affirmation about the person and their personality, not the behavior that's going on or any behavior that you see from them. So, for example, Billy, man, one of the things I appreciate about you the most is how helpful you are in the classroom. I always see you moving around, picking papers up off the ground, organizing stuff for me, and I really do appreciate who you are as a helpful person. Now, once you give them the affirmation about them as a person, then you're going to say, but Billy, check this out. You can choose to answer the question that I'm about to ask you, or if you can't answer it, then there's going to be a consequence. And typically what I like to do is lay out very clearly what the consequence is going to be so there's no surprises. And then you move into asking the question. So what are you doing right now? That's the last time you'll ask that question. And if the student is able to answer the question or the person is able to answer the question, then you move on to the next question. Well, what are you supposed to be doing? Now, if the student doesn't answer the question on that 3rd try after you've taken all those steps, then you have to move on to consequence. But I got to tell you, even when I've worked with some of our most difficult students in the building this year, when I follow that process, I'm 99% of the time able to move on to the next question. And then what you do is you just repeat that process all the way through until you get to the 4 questions. It's something that takes a lot of practice, and it's something that takes a lot of patience. But if you work that process over and over again, it really pays huge dividends. All right, in this next portion of the video, what I'm going to do is walk you through a simulation of how that whole process unfolds. And what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to play the role of the student, and you're going to see the questions up like on text via the video. So you'll see the question, then you'll see the student's response, then you'll see how the teacher or the person would respond in that scenario. And then after we do that, I'm going to ask you guys to break off into groups. One group of you are going to work with Tessa. The other group of you are going to work with Lisa. And Lisa and Tessa are going to give you a scenario of what they're doing as a student that is disrespectful or misbehavior. And then what you're going to do is you're going to, in your group, go through the process of how to ask those 4 questions. Nothing. What am I doing? You're always calling me out. You're always yelling at me. I'm always the one that's in trouble, right? What am I doing? Talking while you're talking. Jeez. I'm supposed to be listening to the dumb instructions. No, I wasn't listening, and I was supposed to be listening. I guess I'm gonna fix it. I'm gonna listen when you talk to me. I'm gonna pay attention and not disrupt other people. I'm going to ask you guys to break off into groups. One group of you are going to work with Tessa. The other group of you are going to work with Lisa. And Lisa and Tessa are going to give you a scenario of what they're doing as a student that is disrespectful or misbehavior. And then what you're going to do is you're going to, in your group, go through the process of how to ask those 4 questions. So good luck to you on that.